It started very simple, like it was more like an encounter. Like I was allowed to come into the temple last year in May, and I met Master Yen Dao, the head monk of the warrior monks. And he's a monk, but he's actually also a calligrapher, he's a musician, like you could feel that he's an artist. And so when he met me, I could feel that he was interested in the art form of choreography, and that he was kind of intrigued by what I was doing. And he was like, maybe you could do something with us. We're not dancers, but maybe you could make something with some of the monks of the temple, and we'd be very open to welcome you and let you experiment and explore something with us, because we're very curious and interested in the outside world.
What drew you to Kung Fu in the first place?
I think what's interesting for me in martial arts is the explosiveness. They're really, like, there's something about them just being able to burst out. And that for me was something that I think in my life right now I needed. I needed that kind of release of energy, and at the same time the spiritual side, which is all about meditation, kind of calming down the mind. So the body being able to just express everything in one single shot, in one single hit, is interesting for me. And then the fact of trying to gain an absolute stillness, like being a stone or something, and just letting everything flow over you. Those two, I think, made it appealing. I did want to change kind of like maybe the collective cliches we have about them. But I have that with any style of dance or movement. Where I have that with hip hop too, where I think like you don't have to have a cap and be have kind of a certain style to be a hip hopper. You can go to the essence of the movement, or really do it in another kind of costume or another other clothes, and suddenly it becomes, you read maybe the movement much more. You read the essence of what hip hop could be about, or jazz or ballet or anything really. I like to take off the clothes and put new clothes on. And so with the Kung Fu, I wanted to do the same. I was really determined to kind of bring it to another, to just give it another aesthetic, because I felt sometimes the aesthetic overthrew the Kung Fu. Like sometimes we just see the whole fireworks, but we don't see the essence of it anymore, and I really wanted to go to that.
But
I started talking to Anthony Gormley about this project, this idea, and he was straight away interested. Being in the temple, you saw these 200 monks, and like 100 of them are warrior monks, all doing the same movement, and so there's this kind of replication, like as if they're all clones in a way, movement clones. In Anthony's work, I find that too, like his own body being replicated at infinity. It just felt right to do this with Anthony. We were discussing things about, something that could be used in many ways, and so he came up with this idea of the boxes, and that was the one that it struck straight away, because it reminded me a little bit of when I was a kid and I was playing with Lego, and kind of being able to build and make anything out of anything. And so these blocks suddenly became like a toy, a really big toy that I could bring to China, to the monks, and be like, let's make this together. And then they'd be like, oh yeah, that's beautiful, okay, we'll try. And then, all 16 of them would be working together to make it possible. And then slowly I'd start choreographing the making. So I'd say, it's more nice if you go around there, and if you go do this. And so it was like architecture, and like playing, like just playing with really big toys.
Did the stories or the movement ideas come out of the designs from the boxes, the way you were playing with the boxes? Or did the Lego building of the boxes serve the ideas of the stories you wanted to tell?
I think it's more, I always work with images first. I think like my natural expression was drawing, so I always kind of go from an image, and the image tells me a story. So slowly I see a story in the image. So in one image you can suddenly see like what's happening within that image. So when I have the skyscrapers and they're just walking, that's one thing, but when they're starting running, it's another, and when they start leaping, it becomes another, and when they go on top of it, it slowly generates for me a sense of story that I then start to link with, how do I go from the skyscrapers to the lotus, or no, maybe I should go from the lotus to the sky. So from small building blocks, from the monks, me, the boxes to the big building blocks, because then the lotus flower also becomes a building block, and the skyscrapers also. So these scenes also have to be built on top of each other to create a piece. So I always go from detail to a performance, to a full performance. Sometimes certain scenes, like the last kung fu scene, it was developed quite early in the process, and I tried to many things, but I felt like this scene is the most profound for me at the end. It made the most sense because it's really cleaning the space, and it just gives room for the kung fu, for the essence of it, and so it kind of demanded to be the end, and then other things demanded to be the beginning. The maze I knew had to be somewhere in the beginning. It didn't make sense to do this at the end. It was something that just fitted as an entrance. Also because I think Dong Dong is very cute when he goes into it, so it kind of makes you be like not prejudiced. You don't see any more monks. You see this little creature going in, and you're straight away into this fantasy world. You're not judging them as being something else than what the image proposes.
Dong Dong and your relationship on stage is extraordinary. When did you decide to use someone so young? Because I know he's 11 now, but he was only 10 when he started.
It was actually a suggestion from Master Yenda. Like, I was working with the boxes and with some of the monks already for, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. And then he said, wouldn't you be interested in working with the child monk? Because I think he just saw that box, because in the beginning we were working a lot inside, and doing the kung fu inside is very difficult. And then he said, well, if you have a little monk, he'll be able to do it. He'll be able to do some martial arts inside of the box. So he said, would you like someone? And I'm like, oh, sure. And then so Dong Dong came into the rehearsal room, and it was fascinating to have all those monks being kind of the same size, and then suddenly this really small one who's just as ready as the others. But because he's younger, he's also much less prejudiced. So he's like, in the beginning he was a bit shy, but then I told him, like, you can just, play, and while the others are doing this, just go in. And so he was starting to become creative. And as children their full potential is still open, so they can become anything. So when I asked him, oh, can you be a little monkey there? And then you become Buddha, but then you die, and then you go there. And he was like, okay. And he just did it. He wasn't thinking like, why am I Buddha? And why am I a monkey? And why? He just went along with the ideas and just executed them. And from executing them, the meaning came, the meaning of the transformation, and the reasons why these intuitive ideas that I might have had, or projections that I had on him, and also his own intuition, because a lot in the beginning it was me telling him, just do that, and then you go into this and that, but then slowly he started to improvise. And even our duet that we do in the box, it is half improvised, because every day he comes to me and he's like, today, well, he doesn't speak English, but he shows me, like, he does a movement like, I do this, and then you go with your head against me, and then I go there with your foot, and then so he's guiding me and telling me what to do, which I think is quite fun to as a choreographer to be like, okay, I'll listen to this 11-year-old who's telling me what the choreography should be.
At the end, when they're actually dancing together to the music, was that strange for them to suddenly be more like dancers in a conventional Western sense?
It's interesting that you see it as a dance sequence, because for them, they're just doing their Kung Fu 11 traditional forms that I kind of, together with the team leader Huang Jiahao, we worked on when a movement stopped at, one of the traditional forms. I would say, can you continue in the third traditional form where that movement comes to, because it's a vocabulary, and then you continue from there. So, and then you guys come in and you pick up on that movement, and you go out because you're tired, and because they never do 5 minutes of Kung Fu non-stop. So this was really a big challenge, this last scene for them. The musicians are actually doing a lot of the work, because they are following the monks. So it's not the monks following the music. The monks feed off the energy of the music, but they have their own rhythm, and the musicians are very gifted. Shemon had created a composition called praying. Actually, the last piece is called Praying, and he didn't know how I was going to use it. So in the beginning, it just was called Praying, and it had this theme, which was a bit like in music terms, you would call it a passacalia. It's something that just keeps on repeating itself and has many variations, but you always recognize the real pattern that comes back again and again, like a mantra. And so there was something of a prayer inside of this. And when I started using it on this last scene, he then developed it with the musicians to make it more and more climatic, give it a climax, and just building it up towards this last moment when we hit the floor with the fist, and then only the beat keeps going, almost like a bolero or like a heartbeat that keeps on resonating like ripples in the water that just keeps on going on and on and on as a resonance. But it is the musicians, really. So they don't see themselves as dancers at all, at that moment at least.